In an old time, when the world moved slowly and hearts were bright with faith, there lived a man named Alin in a remote village called Wadi Noor. His home was a broken, mud-built hut at the edge of the village, where only the whisper of the wind and silence were his companions. The walls would melt in the rain, and the roof, made of dry grass and wood, burned in the summer sun. The door was so old that it creaked with every use, revealing its helplessness. Alin was a humble man, in his early 30s, with wheat-colored skin, a face marked by hard work, and the signs of prayer always visible on his forehead. His clothes were old and faded, and his shoes worn out. Yet, when he walked, there was a dignity in his step, a dignity that came only from truth and faith. Every day, Alin would wake before dawn for far prayer. No matter the heat, cold, or storm, he never missed it. He performed ablution with such care that it seemed he treated water like gold, and on his prayer mat, he stood in devotion so deep that anyone watching would have their eyes filled with tears. He would pray, "O Allah, I have no wealth, no silver, no land, no home. But my trust in your mercy is so strong that I am richer than any king. Bless whatever you give, and if you test me with hardship, do not deprive me of patience and gratitude." Alin's wife, Nadria, had been a source of happiness at first. But soon, her true nature emerged. She despised poverty and longed for wealth, luxurious clothes, and social status. She complained bitterly about their modest life, comparing themselves to rich neighbors, and saying, "Faith doesn't fill the stomach. People laugh at us. I am ashamed." Alin gently replied, "Nadria, our value in Allah's eyes is through our deeds, not wealth. Be grateful that we have food, shelter, and faith." But Nadria refused to understand. Her bitterness grew, and she began seeking admiration elsewhere, secretly drawing close to a wealthy man in the village, Qasim, who owned a vast estate and had everything she desired. Alin remained unaware, devoted to his work, his prayers, and helping the poor. One day, unable to bear her dissatisfaction, Nadria expelled Alin from their home. He left with nothing but a small bag containing the Quran, some bread, and a water skin. He walked into the dark night, alone, trusting Allah to guide him. Though the desert was harsh, scorching by day and freezing by night, Alin never lost hope. He shared his last bread with a thirsty bird, saying, "O Allah, I give from what you have given me, for your sake." Eventually, he reached a tiny village of 10 to 15 houses. Most people turned him away, but an elderly man named Yunus, who had lost his wife, welcomed him. He shared his food and water, offered a place to sleep, and encouraged Alin with words of wisdom. "Alin, you may think you have lost everything, but sometimes Allah protects us from greater trials. Your patience and faith are your true treasures." Alin rested that night, praying long into the night, pouring his heart out to Allah. The next morning, he continued his journey, and after days of travel, hunger, and thirst, he discovered a small oasis with a weak goat in pain. Alin cared for the goat, feeding and giving it water. Suddenly, he heard the approach of riders accusing him of theft, but his honesty shone through. The owner of the goat, a wise man named Sheikh Hamza, witnessed Alin's truthfulness and integrity. He invited Alin to stay and manage his large estate, impressed by his faith, kindness, and dedication. Even when a jealous worker tried to frame him for theft, Alin remained patient, praying and trusting Allah. Eventually, the truth came out, proving Alin's innocence and demonstrating that honesty, patience, and faith always prevail. Alin's trials were not over, but his heart remained steadfast. After traveling through deserts and hardships, he discovered a hidden cave with treasured gold, silver, and ancient jewels. Yet, Alin knew this wealth was not for himself. He declared, "O Allah, this is your gift. I will use it for your creation, not for my own pleasure." He established a small town of kindness, feeding the poor, clothing the needy, building schools for children, opening a free Quran school, and caring for widows and orphans. He worked alongside everyone, setting an example of humility and service. People began to call him Sheikh Alin Rahim, the compassionate leader. Even when Nadria, now fallen into poverty after Qasim abandoned her, came seeking forgiveness, Alin treated her with dignity and care, placing her in a home for widows and needy women, without taking her back as his wife. He had forgiven long ago, for revenge belongs only to Allah. Through Alin's honesty, compassion, and unwavering faith, the community thrived. His small acts of kindness, sharing water, helping animals, supporting the poor, demonstrated that no act of goodness goes unnoticed by Allah. Alin's story reminds us. True wealth is not in gold or silver, but in faith, patience, and honesty. Kindness to others, even to animals, is rewarded. Trials are tests from Allah, enduring them with faith leads to unimaginable blessings. Alin's life became a living lesson that patience, trust in God, and selfless service to humanity are the greatest treasures a person can achieve.